Good morning.
Morning, Miss Case.
How are you?
Well, thanks, and you?
I'm better, thank you, man.
I'm good.
Listen, I've been informed last night or yesterday afternoon I must be in Rwanda on Monday for a
Okay.
women's Commonwealth thing. Um,
Okay. No problem.
I'm gonna be in the meeting, but at about 11 I must go to the doctor to get my
Okay.
vaccinations. So
Okay.
I'm gonna speak at Parliament, be online, and then quickly go to the doctor for that little, maybe 15 minutes, and
Okay.
then be back in the meeting.
Okay. No problem. Noted.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good morning, honourable members and everybody present. Cindy, can I check with you? Am I correct to say that we do have sufficient number of members present on the platform to continue?
Morning, Chairperson. Yes, we do. However, the Auditor-General's team have not joined.
I saw that. That was my second question. Let me also say, colleagues, I do have to apologize. My flight was slightly delayed, so I'm still on my way to my office. So I'm connected on my mobile currently, so I'm not going to switch on my camera. But when I get to my office, I will switch over to my computer. Cindy, can you check with the AG as to when they will connect? And then we can take it from there.
Yes, Chair. I see Puseletso is online. Maybe she can just give us an indication of if they will be connecting now.
Yeah, I see she's not connected to audio yet.
Oh, okay. All right, now I'll check with them.
Thank you so much.
I'll keep you posted. Thank you.
Honourable members, let's just give a second for Cindy to check with the AGSA, and then we can start the meeting.
Hello, members. I'm back. Puseletso is following up with the chairperson. I see the AG has joined, but she's following up with the chairperson of the Audit Committee. They were of the impression that the meeting is starting at 9, and that we're just joining at 8:30 to connect. But she's getting in touch with them now.
Thank you very much, Cindy, and thank you, AG, for joining us. Yes, the 8:30 start is a little unusual, so it is understandable that there could be a misunderstanding. I think, honourable members, let's start, and we will then just be updated on the if the chairperson of the audit committee joined. Otherwise, we'll just rearrange the agenda and try to be as efficient as possible with our time management. Once again, honourable members, thank you very much for your presence and a warm welcome. Also, welcome to the AGSA and the AG in particular, and your team, and also all the parliamentary staff that's present on the platform. As I said in the beginning, my apologies. I'm on my mobile currently. I am going to switch over to my laptop as soon as I'm at the office. My flight was slightly delayed, so I'm still en route, but we can continue. Honourable members, we have quite a lengthy agenda, and the time allocations, you'll see it's anticipated that we conclude the meeting much later this afternoon. I do believe that if we work efficiently and aim to manage our time well, we can conclude much earlier. And I do believe that we can even, without sacrificing meaningful engagements, I do believe we can finish as soon as 11:30, 12 o'clock by latest. So just having said that, let's first start with apologies. Cindy, any apologies that we have received?
Yes, Chair, we've received an apology from Mr. Beasley, and Memo Fokeng has joined, but she's unwell, so she won't be able to speak in the meeting. And Ms. Spies is present, but has to leave at about 11, but she'll be back at about 11:30.
Thank you very much, Cindy. We note those apologies and also members that have to leave early. As I said, I think we will actually be able to conclude by 11:30. Then we move on to the adoption of the agenda. The agenda was distributed to members beforehand. Is there any mover for the adoption of the agenda? Honourable Bateman.
Yes, Chair. I move for the adoption of the agenda.
Thank you very much, Honourable Bateman. There's a mover. Is there a seconder? I see hands, Honourable Spies, Honourable Subrati, Honourable Ligaraba. So let's take note that the agenda is then adopted, duly adopted, and we can then move to the first item on the agenda, but that will now be dependent on if the chairperson of the Audit Committee is present yet. Cindy, can you update us?
The chair is not yet present, Chairperson. Perhaps we could do the minutes in the meantime.
Yes, thank you, Cindy. I think, honourable members, if there's no objection, for the sake of progress, let's move to the adoption of the minutes of our previous meeting and get that out of the way. Cindy, if you can flight it, it was distributed to honourable members. It's not lengthy minutes. Let's just give a second. That was the meeting of the 25th of April. There it is on the screen, honourable members. We can go page by page. Page 1. Members can just indicate if there's any corrections. Page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and there's the end of the meeting and the end of the minutes. Honourable members, Any remarks on the minutes or any mover for the adoption? I don't see any hands. Anybody who wants to move, Honourable Bateman?
Yes, Chair, I'm happy to move for the adoption of these minutes.
Thank you very much, Honourable Bateman. Honourable Spies, do you second?
Yes, I second, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Spies. Then the minutes are adopted, and then we can, Cindy, if we can quickly move to the report and adopt the report. Consider the report as well. The report, honourable members, is on the induction workshop that we attended, that the AGSA presented, and that was held at the AGSA offices in Century City. I'm not going to go through the report page by page. It was distributed to honourable members, and I would assume that honourable members did go through it. Can I ask if there's any corrections, any remarks on the report? I don't see any hands. Then, honourable members, you would note that at the end of the report, it's currently indicated that the report is for information. Honourable members would know that a report can be tabled, ATC'd, for information, or it can be tabled for consideration. In this case, my personal opinion is that this report, there's no necessity to have it considered by the National Assembly, but that we can only table it or can table it for information. Is there a different view, or are you do you agree that we table this report only for information? Any remarks on that? No hands. Honourable Subrati?
Chairperson, I'm in agreement that the report is sufficient for information purposes only, and there's no need for adoption by the House. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honourable Subrati. Appreciate your assistance there. Then, honourable members, is there a mover for the adoption of the report? Honourable Subrati. Honourable Subrati, are you moving for the adoption?
Yes, Honourable Chairperson.
Thank you very much. And then, Honourable Bateman, are you seconding?
Yes, yes, Honourable Chair. I'm seconding the adoption of the report.
Thank you very much, Honourable Bateman. Then the report is adopted, and we've already concluded that part of our agenda. Thank you very much for your assistance in that regard, and that we can move along and progress. Honourable members, let's just again check. Cindy, do we have the chairperson available yet?
Not yet,
See,
Chair.
Cindy is indicating not yet. May I ask to the AGSA, to the AG, are you in a position and ready to brief the committee on that agenda point on the MFMA report and the non-compliance by municipalities? If you're not, we can rearrange it differently, but if you are, then that will assist greatly. AG?
Good morning, Honourable Chair. Yes, indeed, I confirm that I'm ready to go at this point. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, AG, and once again, also thank you for your availability. We do know that you've been abroad, and we really do appreciate your availability to brief the committee. This matter, honourable members, were referred to this committee by the Speaker, and members would remember that we discussed this in the previous meeting, And members felt that it is important to fulfill the mandate of SCoAG that we do, in assisting the AGSA, do get a briefing on the non-compliance of municipalities and municipal entities in this regard, so that we can also consider how we can also assist from our perspective with the efficiency of the mandate of the AGSA. So, AG, thank you very much. And I would ask that you can keep your briefing brief. We have received your presentation, so you can speak to it and highlight the most important parts, and we can leave time for and sufficient time for engagement if necessary. But yes, I think a brief briefing will suffice. But thank you once again, and I hand over to you.
Thank you very much, Chair, and good morning to the honourable members of SCoAG, as well as to the Secretariat and my colleagues from the Audit Office. Thank you, Chair, for the interest that SCoAG has taken in this matter that I picked up with the Speaker. Maybe just as a bit of context, we have prepared the submission to the honourable members of SCoAG, as well as a brief presentation. I will provide my input with the brevity that this meeting requires. One of the things that we take very seriously, Honourable Chair, is for us to lead by example as an audit office by fulfilling our own responsibilities as given in law, making sure that we perform on our constitutional mandate, we complete the audits that we should in the legislated time period. However, as you know, sometimes there are delays associated with either late or non-submissions, or sometimes operational matters. I'd like to give some insight to the committee on the nature of the delays that we deal with. But much of the issues arise in the context of the letter I sent to the Speaker because of the provisions in law. On the next slide, we set out what it is. So the MFMA, which governs finance management responsibilities in local government, sets out the timeframes within which every single municipality ought to submit its annual financial statements to the Auditor-General for audit. It also sets out the timeframe within which the AG must complete the audit so that those audited accounts can be the subject of accountability discussions in the councils, in the provincial legislature, as well as in the National Assembly if the need arises. The law sets out that if there is a non-compliance on the part of a municipality that does not submit its financials to the AG on time, I must raise the matter with the provincial legislature as well as with the Speaker. It also sets out that if I'm unable to complete my audit in the given time, then I must set that out to the Speaker as well as to the provincial legislature, so that they know where the issues are, whether it's on the part of the AG in terms of completing the audit, or there is a different problem in terms of municipalities themselves not submitting financial statements in time. When we read the legislation, the provisions in the MFMA and the PFMA, we accept that, as we set out on the next slide, there are different responsibilities given to each and everyone in the accountability ecosystem. And so the letter to the Speaker is, yes, a requirement of the MFMA, but it comes after we have engaged with the municipality themselves. We've engaged with the province in terms of getting them to support municipalities to submit financials on time. We've also alerted the provincial legislature that is required to exercise oversight on the municipalities in their province. The letter to the Speaker is then to say, Honourable Speaker, we ask you, in accordance with my responsibilities in law, we ask you to please refer the matter to the relevant committees within the National Assembly that can deal with the matters relating to non-submission, in particular to the type of non-submission that is repeated. And so just to give you a sense of where the issues are, as I indicated in my initial briefing, the next slide sets out the actual timeframes. So the year end of municipalities is the end of June. They have some time to prepare their financials. By the end of August, they must submit those financials to the AG to audit. And as you know, we have teams in each and every one of the provinces that are dedicated to the different audit responsibilities in municipalities. My teams then have the time to finish the audits up to the end of November 30th, at which time they must have a signed audit report that's given to the municipality. The municipality is then given time to then table that report in council so that it can be deliberated upon by the end of January. Where the municipality has got entities that must be consolidated into their accounts, they're given a little bit more time. Their submission is the end of September, and they then have to still make sure that they compile an annual report, which then serves in council for oversight purposes. You'll be well aware that once we've completed the individual reports for every single auditee, we then analyze the outcomes, we consolidate a picture for every province, and we engage the provincial executive and the provincial legislature on their outcomes. We also consolidate a national picture, and we compile our annual general report, which is then the report I table in the national parliament, which I will be doing later this month, once I've completed my engagement with the national executive on the national picture. And that's something we do each and every year. The overall submission rates for local government have been improving. However, there are some individual municipalities that trouble us in that they continue to either not submit or submit late. And as a result, the accountability work from an oversight point of view never really happens. The submission of financial statements, let alone the quality of what's submitted, the submission of financial statements is a responsibility that anyone who looks after public funds must take seriously. So when we raise a matter, it's within that context. Every year, every time there are elections, we find that the submission rate or the timely submission kind of regresses. So you'll see that in 2021-22, when the new councils were now submitting their first submissions to us of financial statements, things went backwards. It's improved slightly over time, and we want to get to a point where there isn't a culture of non-submission that continues to be tolerated. On the next slide, we give you a sense of where the problems are. I will flag for you that the Free State remains one of the areas where we struggle the most. On the next slide, honorable members, I think I give you a sense of what the real issue is within the Free State. You'll see that there are some individual municipalities in the different provinces that tend to submit late, or where there's a dispute. And I'll talk about the Umsunduzi one, because I know that has been an area of interest in terms of why that audit was late. But if I can just ask you to focus on the Free State, you'll see that the ones that don't submit on time or either don't submit at all have tend to be represented in the Free State province. And so those particular municipalities, you'll see that their audit outcomes are not great. And so it is consistent with poor management disciplines, consistent with a poor culture of accountability in those environments. As you know, when we denote our audit outcomes, the red is the disclaimer. So if you look at Auditor-Briefing, they've had disclaimers for many years. They're the ones that either don't submit on time, or if they do submit on time, which was the case this year, their entity was not submitted on time. So their consolidated accounts were late. But again, I think as many South Africans would know, you know that the municipality, Auditor-Briefing, has been plagued by major governance challenges for a number of years. Machabe, similarly, a problematic municipality with major instability problems at the council level, at the management level, which translates into poor performance and poor accountability. You'll see that they've had a qualified audit opinion for many years. They came from a repeat disclaimer for many years before that, and improved to qualified, but then they are late because of the operational challenges within that environment. Masilonyana, a disclaimer, Mohakari, a disclaimer, and Kopanong, a disclaimer. If nothing else, I would urge you to take into account that where you see non-submission or late submission, more often than not, it relates to poor governance in those municipalities. As you can see, the outcomes bear that out. In terms of Umsunduzi, as I said, I'm aware that that's been an area of interest. The audit was late because of a dispute that arose during the audit process. The process within the office is that if there is a difference of opinion on a technical matter in the audit, we do give time to ensure that that matter is concluded before we finalize the audit report. In this instance, there was a dispute about the nature of the submission that had come from the municipality. We did give an opportunity for that municipality to resubmit the information so that we could give them a chance to correct the misstatements that we had found in the version that they submitted. They still didn't get it right, even after we'd given the opportunity for them to complete it, to improve their submission. We finally completed that audit. However, it was late, and it is my responsibility to transparently account for the delay, but also to indicate what the nature of the issue was. It was a difference of approach, and ultimately it was resolved. We have a dispute resolution process within the office, which allows us to complete those disputes by making to finalize those disputes, having given the municipality the opportunity to have their case heard by someone senior within my team, and for that senior person to apply their mind as to the appropriateness of having them resubmit, and then take it from there. If we had not allowed them to resubmit, they probably would have still ended up in the same audit opinion. However, the team executive found it appropriate to rather give them the opportunity to resubmit in this particular instance. So that was the nature of the dispute. But I think if nothing else, I wanted to highlight that non-submission is a problem, and it is one we have to keep our eye on. And there are specific sites where it is an issue. And the provincial leadership and the provincial executive and legislature within every province is well aware of it. On the next slide, we do set out some of the operational challenges that result in the type of delays and the interventions that we make. Sometimes it's the submission of financial statements is because you'll find that there's some instability in the CFO level in particular. And so they then struggle to get the submission at the right quality and at the right time. But often it's because of management problems, discipline issues within that environment. Often municipalities struggle to get their asset management right. So the real issue is about making sure that that which they can confirm is the set of assets they do have is properly reflected in their books. The reason they struggle with that is because they've not yet built up the normal monthly, quarterly practices that would ensure that they know what they're buying, what the condition those assets are in, and what's not there anymore, so that they can write it off if they need to. If they don't have those disciplines in place, then they'll struggle to get their debits and credits right, and that's how the matter arises. Sometimes the delays because the way they file the information is not appropriate, so they're not able to give us the documents to support what information they want us to sign off on. There are instances where there's labor unrest, which then just delays the audit process. It's not pervasive, but it has happened in the past where because of unrest at a particular audit site, the team then has to move out of that environment and go back in only when it is safe to do so. And then, as I indicated, there are sometimes audit disputes. The manner in which we're dealing with the audit disputes is informed by the regulation that's currently in play, where we do have a dispute resolution process, which I approved after consultation with SCoAG during the 6th Parliament, and that is in relation to what sits in the Public Audit Act as what I'm supposed to do. And that dispute resolution process is serving us pretty well in terms of making sure that we can conclude the matters effectively and fairly, so that we can be efficient in concluding our audit processes. Maybe if I can head on to the last slide. The next one just deals with the detail of Msunduzi, but we can get back to that if need be. On the last slide, in terms of what we've done and what we could potentially keep asking of different role players in the ecosystem of accountability to do, it would be that we've got to make sure that we don't just leave municipalities to their own devices. We've got to make sure that at provincial executive level, as well as the provincial legislature, there's adequate oversight on at least the submission of financial statements and supporting municipalities to get financial statements submitted. The work we've done over the last few years, Honourable Chair and Honourable Members, as AGSA, entailed encouraging the provincial treasuries, the provincial COGTAs, the offices of the Premier to play their role in ensuring that they support municipalities to submit on time. And it worked in a number of instances. For example, 2 years ago in the Free State province, when we worked with the then Premier around getting submissions done, it did work. However, things went backwards when there was a change in leadership. It means we will have to start again in that province. We also highlight the need for the provincial legislature to keep an eye on this. We've also used our powers to issue material irregularities where there were repeat non-submissions, and to some extent that has helped. So it's been a combination of using our powers, of using our influence, because we do engage with the provincial leadership, and of continuing to watch the space. There should be no reason why a municipality gets away with not submitting financial statements every single year and on time. We've also highlighted in our call to action, and as you would have seen in the letter that I sent to the Honourable Speaker of Parliament, to say, yes, I'm required to highlight to the Honourable Speaker where there are repeat non-submissions or late submissions, as well as where there are delays in the audit process, and to somewhat plead with her to activate the oversight processes within the National Assembly and its relevant committees to get this culture right. And then we've also highlighted the importance of getting the portfolio committees in Parliament to stay on the matter where there are repeat instances of non-submission. A combination of non-submission and disclaimer audit opinions does detract from us building a culture where people who are entrusted with managing public funds do so with the requisite discipline and the requisite accountability posture. And so it is important that all of us in the ecosystem of accountability do what we can to get municipalities to fulfill their obligations as stated in the law. Honourable Chair, I hope I've given some sense of what the context of that letter was and why it was that I sent it. I sent that sort of letter to the Honourable Speaker every single year to give a sense of where things are and also to highlight the importance of matters being dealt with. I trust that the briefing I've offered now has been adequately brief, but also adequately informative for the honourable members of SCoAG. I'll hand back to you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, AG, and we welcome the presentation, and thank you once again for briefing us on this very important matter and also empowering us to fulfill our role in the ecosystem of accountability in this regard. Honourable members, I'm going to open the floor for engagement. Any questions for clarity, any comments, any engagement, you are welcome. Honourable Subrati.
Thank you, Chairperson, and good morning to AG and the team from AG and other members on the call. Chairperson, mine is probably just a comment, and that is just to note the formality of SCoAG receiving this letter. We note that the AG has referred the matter rightfully to SCOPA and COGTA, where the non-submission should really be processed and where parliamentary oversight should take place via SCOPA and via COGTA. So we note that the AG has, so this committee in SCoAG notes that AG has dutifully informed the relevant parliamentary committees, and that has been done. So we appreciate that. Mine is maybe just from AG to inquire, whilst I'm sure municipalities are aware of their responsibilities and time frame, maybe just to understand from the AG's processes point of view, what is the system of informing municipalities of a pending deadline? Is there a system of communication where they are given notices in advance that there is a deadline? And possibly, if AG is aware that these municipalities are challenged in some way, is there any assistance rendered through workshops or through capacitation if needed, so that these municipalities can improve on their on their timely submission of financials? Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honourable Subrati, Honourable Spies, and then Honourable Bateman.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair, and good morning, colleagues, and good morning to the AG. Chair, mine is also a comment because I really battle to understand how municipalities are still at this day, in this day and age, not complying. And I think the AG has said it. It's totally beyond why municipalities are still struggling, because I know for a fact the things that are put in place to assist municipalities, and I'm taking that from being a mayor for 2 terms, and knowing how important it is that a council prioritizes the compliance when it comes to financial statements, but also when a management report is given to a council, that needs to be dissected, that actually should become a agenda item on a council agenda, standing until the matter has been dealt with, and one could say, okay, it is now resolved. It is clearly for me that municipalities, political leadership and the administration are not doing their jobs, because there are so many things, Chair, or mechanisms put in place to ensure that we do not get to this point. I mean, you look at the fact that there's, your mayoral committees. You look at there's other committees within the finance sector or the finance department that must hold everyone accountable. You have the audit committee in each municipality. Some have internal audits. You have, when it comes to budget steering committees, there is so much. You have your monthly reports that speaks to issues and that red flags those issues. And so if all of that is in place, the question is, what are people doing? They are not doing their work. And one is asking ourselves, what more can we do? What drastic measures must now be put in place in order for us to deal with this? When I served on COCTA, there were many instances where we've really placed municipalities under administration, where we've had financial recovery plans put in place and they had to adhere to that. And still you find they do not do that. And so my concern and question and total, I'm just gobsmacked by the fact that people are just not doing their work, and that we have to sit and find many ways of how we're still going to deal with this, find different angles. There needs to be a serious meeting with COCTA, not us as per se, but I'm sure AG engages with COCTA a lot, and I know she did when I served there. I just do not know at this, it fails me really this morning as to what more is it that we need to do for municipalities to make sure that they adhere, that they comply, and that how this is so important to their constituents within their towns. That is just my comment, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Spies. Honourable Bateman.
Thanks, Honourable Chair, and good morning to all my colleagues and to all those on the platform and to the AG, and thank you, AG, for an excellent presentation, which I found very helpful. One of the things that we picked up during the discussions on the Division of Revenue Bill is that the Constitution talks about the equitable share, taking into account the fiscal capacity and efficiency of the provinces and the municipalities. And so we proposed a proxy for measuring the fiscal capacity of each of these different entities as the level of fruitless and wasteful expenditure. Now, it might be that we can work out a more finely tuned proxy for fiscal capacity, but the idea here is that there seems to be a constitutional basis for adjusting the equitable share according to the ability of the municipality or the province to spend it well. And so I wondered whether there would be, from the AG's perspective, any merit, and from the committee's perspective, any interest in exploring whether, as a committee, we could think about proposals for amending the equitable share formula that's used by Treasury to take into account the fiscal capacity. The reason why we're saying this is because obviously this is a major issue. The fact that, as everyone has raised, most recently my colleague, the issue of them not producing, many municipalities not producing accounts on time, or not producing accounts that are unqualified, or not or having high levels of fruitless and wasteful expenditure, unauthorized expenditure, and so on. If we could find a way of distilling all that into some kind of objective formula so that the municipalities realize that the cost of fiscal ill discipline is actually felt by the municipality, then would that perhaps be a way of making sure everyone in the municipality realize that getting this right is everyone's business? And so I suppose the question, and just to reiterate, is to the AG is, do you think such an idea has merit? And to the committee, via the chair, would there be any appetite to explore what that sort of proposal could look like? I mean, it would be a proposal from us, which we could put forward, whereby we say, here would be a workable way of making sure that the fiscal capacity or lack of capacity is recognized in how much money actually you end up getting at the end of the day from the equitable share. So yeah, that's my question. Thanks.
Sure, Bateman, and thank you for that proposal as well. And I'm sure that the AG will respond and give her opinion on that as far as she's able to. Let me recognize Honourable Montana and then Honourable Mwali.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, Chair, and good morning to my colleagues, the honourable members. Good morning, AG and the team, and the support team in Parliament. I just want to raise two quick questions, Chair, because I think we're dealing with quite a complex matter. And I think that you can't reduce it to one problem. It's not just about people not doing their job, so it's not about the financial capacity. I think that we made some stage, not only as this committee, but as Parliament, to look at the entire architecture that we run, both on the financial side as well as in terms of institutions. But that's a debate for another day. I just want to raise two questions for the AG. I think the last point she made was that was in respect of disputes between the AG and the auditors. She didn't go into detail. I know that we as this committee, we don't deal with the individual audits. Those follow a different process. But I think at a much more general level, and I think I raised this issue in previous meetings, what is the nature of these disputes? I've seen from other committees I sit, there's been, quite some of the audits being delayed. I mean, if I take example, for example, of South African Airways, where an audit was delayed because there were disputes between, on certain transactions, the treatment of transactions, or the issue of assets and all of those things. In this particular instance, I think the AG dealt with it in general, but I want to have a sense of the nature of this disputes. I accept that there is the dispute resolution mechanism that she spoke about, but I just want to have a much better sense. Where, I mean, she used the word different approaches. Is it in relation to the process? Is it in relation to the accounting treatment of on some of these things? So I think that is one issue that I just want to get the sense, because I don't think we should deal with it in passing. The second issue I want to have, and this is a different take to, or is the other side to the issue raised by Honorable Bateman. And this relates to, and I'm raising this because in one of the discussions in the Appropriations Committee, the negative impact of unmandated and funded mandates that are being pushed down to municipalities, where, municipalities have either had to divert funds to this unmandated function, to this unmandated or unfunded functions, or in some instances where they do not have the capacity to implement some of those. In the work with municipalities, to what extent does the AG find that this is a common problem, and how can we address it? Because I don't want us to take one
recording in progress.
Only one aspect on this. We need to look at the problem in a round so that we'll be able to find much more sustainable solution. Thank you, Chair.
I can't hear the chair. Is it just me?
Yeah, I also can't hear. I thought he didn't like my view, so he cut me off. But it seems I'm not alone.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you clearly, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, no, Honourable Montana, actually, thank you for your contribution. Sorry about that. I'm not sure. I had to switch my microphone now to another device. But that seems to be sorted. Honourable Muwali, my apologies. You are recognised.
Thank you so much, Chairperson. I would like to mention a few things here, Chair. We would like to welcome the presentation from the AG about the issues of these not properly run municipalities. Chairperson, I raised this sometime last year when we had a meeting with the AG, that the issues are not at preparation, but the issues here are as you run these municipalities. So we are faced with a situation where we do not receive financials. Normally, the AG doesn't receive financials at the end of the year. But that does then indicate that there are issues even in running the municipalities during the year, because the missing of these deadlines is not an issue of preparation at the end, but to have the right personnel that are going to run the municipality so that we have financials at the end of the financial year. So another thing, Chair, that I wish this committee to not miss here is the issue of understanding that these municipalities are run by political parties. And we end up with a situation where multiple years we are not receiving financials at the end of the financial year as a result of not seeing any consequences from the accounting officers. There's no consequence management at all for those who are accountable to give us these financial statements. So we will not see the end of this unless those who are responsible are held accountable. We also note that this has been shared with the relevant committees like SCoPA. But it's a shame, and I would say those who are responsible must hang their heads in shame. Because this is not just an issue of properly running these municipalities, but they speak loudly of the fact that our communities never even received the service delivery. So this picture we are discussing here is a picture of the service delivery that should be getting or should be received by our communities that these municipalities are responsible for, that they never see. At some point when we discussed, we said municipalities must not be even comfortable with unqualified with findings, because when you drill down to that unqualified with findings, you find that it's issues of service delivery that never gets to the people. When AG looks at AOPO, they realize that targets that are set by these municipalities, they never get to be realized, because it's just an exercise of having the target, but they are never realized. When you look at those targets, it's issues of service delivery, which is the core mandate of the municipality. So we end up with this picture that doesn't look okay in this democratic dispensation. Really, it's not a good picture. And I know that the AG has exhausted all available options to speak to these municipalities, to get them to where they're supposed to. But when you look at the presentation, it's not an issue of last year, but it's been years that these municipalities never submit financial statements. So they're going in every year without submitting financial statements. But they get appropriated a budget to run the municipality, but they never submit financial statement every year. Even if they do, it's a disclaimer because the AG can't do any work. Really, Chairperson, it's not a good picture. Let me conclude by saying, really, we must not mention the fact that it's also lack of political will to do a correct thing here. So the council is supposed to be ensuring that the accounting officer produces financial statements at the end of the year. So if the council sits and year in, year out without having financial statements, I don't know what they say. I don't know what does it say to them as they are responsible for running the municipality. So, Chairperson, we wish at some point to see a better picture than this. We wish to see people taking their jobs very serious and do their work and do what they're supposed to do. Thank you so much.
I think I'm audible now, yes. Seems as though I have to switch my microphone each time I mute and unmute, but I'll do that. Thank you, Honourable Mwale, much appreciated. I don't see any more hands, so I will hand over back to the AG. Let me just add to what the Honourable Mwale said. I think that is also the reasoning and the motivation for why the members of SCoAG felt it necessary to receive a briefing on this matter, although it might be interpreted to be without or outside the mandate of SCoAG directly. It is a political matter as well, and there's, as the Honourable Mwale put it, there's political parties in charge of municipalities, and each member, as a collective, but also individually, has a role to play to better the situation of non-compliance and of all the lack of accountability that is especially on and occurring on local level. So I think that also puts it very well in perspective as to why we wanted this briefing. Also, honourable members, I think it was mentioned by honourable members that there's further engagements, especially by COCTA, that is necessary in a lot of these aspects. And members would remember that when we had the discussion on the referral, we discussed the option of written briefing. We decided against that. We discussed the option of asking for a joint briefing with the other mentioned committees. We also decided against that. But we did then mention the option of, at a certain stage, engaging in a joint meeting that post-briefing to actually just discuss with our colleagues in other committees and to brainstorm and to share the collective responsibility in finding solutions, especially in how the National Assembly and the legislature as a whole can improve and play our role to improve this accountability issue. So the possibility is there, and I think we should explore asking the other committees that's involved to have a after their briefings has taken place, and when there's time in the program, to have a joint engagement just to discuss as colleagues of the various committees. Honourable Montana, I see your hand.
Thanks, Chair. I just want to emphasize, Chair, that I think that the AG has done the right thing. This issue belongs to our committee. It's consistent even with provisions of the Public Audit Act that is there. I think that the adequate instruments in this piece of legislation that we could look at in relation to how we address this particular matter. We are not getting into the individual audit, but I think that as a committee, for example, we may want to in fact bring this to the attention of the House. Whether we do that before engagement with other committees or after, but it falls squarely within because I think the AG has done the right thing. She explained in a presentation that she wants to give the reasons and that the delays are not coming from the side of the Auditor-General. So we as a committee has got a duty to look at the business of the Auditor-General as an office. Our job is not necessarily to go into individual audits, as it were, because those follow a particular process resulting into SCoPA, looking into some of the issues that are there. But I just want to emphasize, Chair, that as we look for solutions, we have a common understanding that this matter falls squarely, is consistent with the Public Audit Act and is in line with the mandate of this particular committee. Thank you, Chair.
Much for that, Honourable Montana, and I agree with you. think we will most definitely report to the House. It was referred to us formally by the Speaker, and we can, when we consider a draft report on this matter, discuss and deliberate on how we and what we resolve or ask the House to resolve on this. And it can also then include further engagements with other committees to assist from our perspective, especially within the Audit Act framework and the effectiveness framework to give a solution and to assist to resolve this challenges. AG, I'm going to hand over to you for responses. You are most welcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chair, and to the honourable members for their comments and their questions. I'll try and cover my responses in a way that deals with all of the matters raised by Honourable Subrati, Honourable Spies, Honourable Bateman, and Honourable Montana, as well as Honourable Mwadi and yourself, Honourable Chair. The question about do municipalities know what's expected of them? The deadlines are set out in the MFMA, and they remain the same every single year. And we engage with municipalities during the course of the year in different ways, often with the municipal manager and or the mayor, to remind them of not only their need to submit on time, but also to follow up on the implementation of their audit action plan that they would have compiled following the previous audit, and to give them a sense of whether there is progress being made in preparing for an improved outcome in the forthcoming year. We also give that sort of feedback to the provincial leadership, specifically the Premier and the Provincial Treasury and Provincial Copter. So we do use the fact that we see those in local government and provincial government regularly to drive ongoing attention to matters of financial and performance reporting, as well as improvement in financial management. This lot of non-submitters, let's call them, we are flagging the ones that are repeat offenders, because it can happen that there's a problem in one particular year and then things are resolved going forward. Our concern is about those that are repeat offenders in this regard. Some of the things we do assist with include even completing the audits quickly once the submission comes, so that by the time we issue our general report, you'll note that the report we issue come the end of this month, we'll only be reporting on 4 municipalities whose audits were not completed. Even though some of them were late, we are able to give a sense to oversight on the nature of the audit outcomes that were characterized by the late submitters. In terms of what's the problem, so Honourable Speaker, you do ask what is the problem. Our diagnosis of this is that the problem is not always lack of skill, although that can be an issue in some of the municipalities. But if you compare, let's say, Masilonyana, which has people in acting roles, vacancies for many months in a financial year, that will be about skill and capability. But if you compare that to Msunduzi, which is late on a regular basis, or that has ongoing qualified audit opinions, that's not so much a capacity problem. It's more discipline and the capabilities that a disciplined environment brings into the picture. We look at the process of compiling audits, compiling budgets, and maybe this will partly answer the concern that you're raising, Honourable Bateman, as well as Honourable Montana. The process of compiling budgets isn't one that is done in accordance with what was foreseen when the MFMA and the Municipal Systems Act were brought into place. The budgets that are compiled often don't link into the key service delivery requirements of municipalities. And if that matching isn't happening, and that prioritization isn't clear, because obviously one cannot do all that one wants to do because of limited resources. But if you're not consistent in highlighting what choices you're making, what priorities you are putting into the budget, not only does trust diminish in terms of how citizens experience that municipality, but the allocation of key resources to basic things like maintaining infrastructure, making sure that you fund the delivery of sanitation services. Those things, when they are not in the budget, they tend not to get done. And then, of course, capabilities get lost because you're not investing in the key skills you need to fulfill key service delivery obligations for municipalities. We find that just that discipline of planning properly for performance, making sure it links to a budget, and monitoring the expenditure of those budgets on a regular basis, those things don't get done. And then what happens is that you have an unfunded budget, let's start with, and sometimes it's because of real viability problems, but sometimes because there are particular priorities chosen that are not consistent with key service delivery requirements. And then that budget is not monitored on a regular basis. The law requires that there be a monthly report, a quarterly report that then goes into council, and a mid-year full assessment on performance and financial performance and service delivery, which is supposed to go to council. Whilst those reports might be done from a box-ticking point of view, the substance of those reports is found wanting, and the use of those reports is not great, or in terms of service delivery monitoring by municipalities, even amongst metros. What I'm really trying to land is that there are very clear obligations in law. There are clear prescripts that the National Treasury has put in place. So there's no doubt about what's required. And often, even when there are skills in place, the discipline of making sure that things are done in accordance with what's expected, that discipline is often lacking. And that's what will then account for not just the unfunded budgets, but also the unauthorized expenditure, and ultimately the deficits that are incurred year on year. So whilst there may be a debate about the need to allocate greater resources into particular environments in local government, there's probably a much more urgent discussion to be had around how do you make sure that those resources will be managed appropriately. In too many environments of local government, we find that not to be the case. You'll know that a clean audit denotes where financial management practices are sound. So the financial report is there, it's done properly, and we find that the financials fairly present what should be, what has been, how finances have been managed over the year. We also report on whether or not performance information is credible, whether or not the report card that is compiled by the municipality on what they've achieved, whether that is reliable. And then we talk about whether there's compliance with the law, especially around financial and performance management. So a clean audit is really just about the basics. It doesn't say you've done everything you're supposed to do, but at least the basics of financial and performance management are actually in place. The unqualified with findings, often the financial reports that we give an unqualified audit opinion form are attained only after many revisions of the financial statement. So maybe to the point, Honorable Mwali, you were making, the submissions that we receive at the end of August are often of financials that are of poor quality, even when consultants have been used. And then through the audit process, there are corrections made, because when we find errors, we give an opportunity to correct to a limited extent. And then when we get to the point where there's an unqualified audit opinion, most of those, in fact, in our analysis, nearly half of those would not have got an unqualified audit opinion if we had not given them the opportunity to correct. It's important to highlight this because it says, during the course of the year, the monthly financial statements were not appropriately done. The quarterly financial statements that then end up in council are not correct. The mid-year performance assessment and mid-year budget assessment, that is not based on credible information. And therefore, chances are that the decisions being made by council around budget, in mid-year budget adjustments, those are not informed by credible information. And then it ends up with information that's submitted to the AG that doesn't have credibility. So we flag it to say financial management discipline is still lacking, even though the final year accounts are given a green tick by the AG. One of the things I did this time around in terms of the audit cycle for MFMA, at the end of every cycle, I do visit each of our audit teams, and we sit and we talk about the audits that they've conducted under my authorization. And we have a conversation around what it is they've experienced on the ground so that I can have a sense of what the true picture is. And so in the course of this visit, I put up the slides for my teams in every single one of the provinces, and I merely asked the question, which of these municipalities would you send money to, expecting that that money would be well spent? And I was able to frame it because I said, look, in South Africa at the moment, we're struggling with a fiscus that's overstretched. There is major conversation being had across the country around where to put the money we do have so that it can result in the things we hope for and aspire for. So the conversation with my teams went along the lines of saying, which of these municipalities would you put money into, reasonably expecting that that money will be spent in a way you expect? The answer came. They said the clean audit, I would send money to, because I believe that the things that will be done with it, I can reasonably expect will be consistent with what we agreed. If I were Minister of Finance or MEC Finance in a particular province, I would not send money to disclaimers. I would not send money to adverse opinions. I would not send money to the qualified audit opinions. The unqualified audit opinions, my team told me, they would be very cautious with sending money to. In fact, many of them said, no, they wouldn't send that money. Some volunteered and said, well, they would send that money and send some additional monitoring capability to check that that money is spent properly. In a nutshell, my teams are telling me that those with unqualified audit opinions are not environments that have got the stable financial management disciplines and practices that will make for well-run institutions, the type of institution that will deploy funds in the most effective and efficient way, and in a way that's consistent with what's expected. So, as you know, the people I work with are nerdy accountants in the main, very conservative people, but that's the feedback that they were able to share. And so what it tells us in a nutshell is that the majority of our municipalities in South Africa are not yet the type of institutions that have got solid financial management practices that are so needed if we are to deploy funds and confidently expect that we will get the outcomes we so hope for. Honorable Bateman, I'm not in the position to really give too much advice on equitable share allocations and the political decisions around which institutions will be expected to deliver what part of our national aspirations. However, what I can tell you based on the work we've done this year and in the years that have come to pass, it is that unless you have solid environments where the council is equipped to do what it's supposed to do and knows what they're supposed to do and does it diligently, they don't approve a mid-year budget adjustment that's not characterized by credible information, that's not informed by credible information, and is not informed by a posture that seeks to deliver on what was promised. If you don't have that, you're unlikely to get those environments to do what they expected. If you don't have competent, stable management in those institutions doing what they're supposed to do on a regular basis, monitoring that the money that they do have is being spent appropriately, you're unlikely to get what you hope for if you send money to those institutions and then look away. The ones where they've got compliance findings, especially on the area of procurement, tend to be the ones where we have leakage. And over the last few years, we've been seized, honorable members, with answering the question of how do we link these non-compliances with procurement legislation to leakage at the end of the day. And there is compelling audit evidence that in a number of instances, non-compliance with key laws and regulations on procurement and supply chain management does lead to poor outcomes in terms of efficiency of spend, quality of what's being received, whether it's a project or a service delivery initiative, the timeliness with which that's actually done, and the effectiveness with which it's done. In terms of what we see in the preparation of financial statements, Honorable Mwali, we see that even though the majority of CFOs in local government have got the qualifications that are required, sometimes the teams they lead don't have those skills. But even when that is the case, the discipline of doing what they're supposed to do every single week, every single month, every single quarter simply doesn't exist. And then they come to the end of the year and they hire consultants to prepare financial statements. And then often they look away during the audit process. They simply hand over the responsibility to deal with the AG to the consultants. What that tells us is that more than a problem of skills, it's a problem of discipline. If you have a CFO that isn't there to respond to audit queries when we are auditing financials prepared for them by consultants, if they're not taking ownership of that information, it raises all manner of questions about discipline and stewardship. One other thing, maybe in terms of the matters that have been raised by the honourable members, and I'll end off there, is about the audit disputes. Honourable Montana, you're raising an important point. The type of disputes we have, so in Msunduzi, which should be able to account for debtors, should be able to account for their revenue line. We found that that dispute related to journals that were being passed at the end of the audit year to try and get to the right figure that they could justify for audit purposes. The root cause of this is that the regular disciplines that should be there to bill correctly, read meters, bill correctly, make sure that you collect, make sure that you are assessing your debtors book on a regular basis, and then make the necessary adjustments so that that number in the balance sheet at the end of the day is an appropriate one. Those disciplines were not there. So what I would urge you to see is that whilst the dispute might look like it was a technical dispute about the misstatement, at the heart of it was Msunduzi asking us to reconsider the information that they had submitted in the hope that they would get to the right number. Unfortunately, they didn't get there. Some of the other disputes we face are technical interpretations of standards, of auditing standards, of accounting standards, or even of procurement legislation. So what we tend to do there is we will go to the National Treasury and ask them for how they want a particular regulation to be interpreted, what it is they sought to achieve with that particular regulation. Often we get a response, and it may delay the audit process because it's important that we get a response from the National Treasury and we are able to craft our own view as AGSA on what our ultimate opinion is, based on input from the National Treasury. When that input comes, then we close out the matter. We still formulate our own opinion, which is what we're required to do, but we do consult with the owners of the legislation, being the National Treasury, and the owners of the prescripts, being the National Treasury in particular. So it can be about legal interpretations or financial reporting interpretations. If you look at modified cash, sometimes there are disputes around how to interpret particular aspects of it. It's not that frequent, but it does happen, and then we do refer to the National Treasury to get their insight. And if it's a legal matter around the interpretation of a particular contract, we get legal assistance. We will solicit legal opinions from legal experts on what the appropriate interpretation ought to be. So it's about interpretation and judgment. On process, it's hardly the case, but sometimes the process questions, such as the one that Msunduzi may have raised, to say, well, you didn't give me adequate opportunity to correct, then we will make sure that we attend to it in the way that we've done in this instance and in many others. So I hope that is helpful in giving some sense of the type of disputes. Oh, you raised SAA. It was also around the interpretation of what the accounting standards require insofar as reporting on aspects of their revenue line. Ultimately, we were able to find each other, and I think in that instance we were correct. We try hard to be fair. We try hard to give the opportunity for people to escalate the problem within our institution, making sure that the person who looks at the substance of the issue at hand is not one involved in the audit, so that there is fairness and a different pair of eyes that looks at the issue. And then we're able to conclude on it. I'll conclude my remarks on this, Honourable Chair and Honourable Members, by saying that getting this thing right, getting local government right, is indeed everyone's business. Thank you very much for those words, Honourable Bateman. Thank you.
Appreciate it. And honourable members, then we conclude this item, and we once again thank the AG for the presentation, and we welcome it, and we will process it accordingly and engage further and deliberate further on this very important matter. So, honourable members, we can then move on. I have been informed that the Audit Committee, the chairperson of the Audit Committee, is present and has joined us. So welcome to the delegation from the Audit Committee, and I will hand over to you to brief us. What is important and where the focus should be is on the fact, and what the committee deliberated on was the multi-year nature of the agreement with the external auditors. In the light of the statutory obligation that in terms of the Public Audit Act, that the National Assembly has to annually appoint an external auditor. And I think I would ask you to focus your briefing on that. We have received the presentation, and I do thank you for that. Honourable members had the opportunity to go through that. So I would ask you to not go through it at length, but to keep it brief and focused on that issue, the issue of vis-a-vis the annual appointment in terms of the Public Audit Act, whilst there's a 5-year agreement with the external auditors. And then we can have a brief deliberation on the matter. But thank you very much, and I hand over to you.
Good morning, Honourable Chair, Honourable Members. It really is a pleasure and a privilege to be addressing you this morning. There's one Audit Committee member that has joined me, Mr. Mampuru. Unfortunately, the other colleagues could not join us, and they have sent through their apologies. Yes, once again, Chair, thank you for this opportunity. I just really would like to really deal directly with the question as you, or rather the matter as you have mentioned. The contract, or really rather the matter that we are having a discussion around is a contract, the external audit contract that was approved in 2017 for the 5 years, for March 2018, and then for March 2019 and March 2020 and March 2021 and March 2022. So that's the initial 5 years. And the contract was then subsequently renewed, which was what was understood at the time and agreed also with SCoAG, renewed for another 5 years. So where we are now, 2023 has been done, 2024 has been done, and 2025. And again, thank you, Chair, for the approval of SCoAG that we received last year. So where we are now, the contract remains with 2 years to finalize or for it to come to conclusion. When we approved as the Audit Committee this contract in 2017, we did then sought the approval of SCoAG, and SCoAG approved. And every year when we present the integrated report in October, November, we then do seek an approval from SCoAG for the following year, which is, for instance, is what we have just done now for 2025, where SCoAG gave us the approval to appoint the auditors for the 2025 year, which audit has already commenced. Chair, yes, I'm not going to take too much time having mentioned that, but I thought, or rather we thought it's also very important just to remind the committee really what informed the decision. We also, because it's been quite a while, so even us, sometimes we do go back and just remind ourselves, why did we actually make this decision? So there's just a couple of things that I thought we must just highlight what really led us to the decision. One is that the external audit is very important. It's an independent service, and therefore it's always very, very important that we get someone who's got credibility, someone who's been in the market for a long time, and someone who's got a global reach. And this we are informed also by the fact that the AGSA is a supreme auditor, and so it's very, very important. And Chair, we were also listening into the discussion that you just had around audits of other institutions, and therefore it is very, very important on our side that the credibility of the Auditor-General's office is always maintained. So the financial issues in the audit or in the office of the Auditor-General must never be questionable. Then the other point also to mention, Chair, is that the AGSA business is quite vast, and as a result of that, so to make sure that they're able to do everything that they need to do, they do outsource some of their services, and as a result, and we call this CWC. So they outsource some of the services so that they can be able to deliver fully on their mandate. And as a result of that, the companies that are operating or that are being used for outsourcing are automatically excluded from being external auditors. And the reason for that, it's around independence. And again, to make sure that credibility is maintained. So that then limits the number of audit firms that you can have. For instance, large firms like Deloitte, etc., and medium firms, even black medium firms, they would typically not participate in external audit. They would rather participate in CWC because the risk there is less, and also there's a possibility to do a lot more work with the outside of CWC, other work with the Auditor General. And the other two last points, I think the one really is knowledge of the business becomes very, very, very important, because what we know from experience is that it generally takes at least 3 years for one to say that I can have an understanding of the business, and so 3 years understanding the business. So that means if you are going to have an auditor, it's very important that you have those auditors for a reasonable time. So in this case, 5 years, we considered it an appropriate time. So I'm mentioning this, Chair. I mean, these are not everything that this list is not exhaustive, and you can see here what we are highlighting on the presentation here, the areas that we considered, and also, Chair, we are informed by our own experiences. When we presented previously, Chair, we presented the profile of the Audit Committee, where we've got Audit Committee members that have been in this business, and they've got the necessary experience, in our view, necessary skills, and are able to give voice and credence, even in as far as appointing or recommending the approval of the external audit to SCoAG, and with knowing that SCoAG has the final authority. Thank you, Puseletso. If we can go to the next slide. Yes, I have covered this around CWC. I think, Chair, here, I think it's important. I mean, we initially we went out on a tender, but the point that I mentioned, that people are reluctant to participate. They'll rather participate in CWC. So we took another step further. We went to the Independent Regulatory Board of Auditors, and I tried to find the list, and then we actually approached those firms to try and ask them to participate in the tender process. Of course, when we did that within the policies, not to try and create expectation of any particular firm being appointed. I think we can go to the next slide, Puseletso. Yes, and we followed due process. The tender was adjudicated properly, approved by the Audit Committee, and then we presented our recommendations to SCoAG, and SCoAG approved the appointment. Here also, I think, Chair, it's very important that as I mentioned, that we also take into account the experience that the committee members have, some sitting on some of the listed companies. So we then also considered, typically in let's say in a listed company, the auditors would be reappointed at the AGM by the members on an annual basis. And until that approval by the AGM, which are the members, has not been approved yet, then the auditors are not approved. Similarly, the same process here that we follow, we present as the Audit Committee, we present for the external auditors every year, and only once SCoAG is approved, we then go ahead and engage the auditors, and for them to continue with the audit. Thanks, Puseletso. Next slide. Here, I think, Chair, just a correction. This slide summarizes the timing, the dates when our contracts were approved. Just 2017, it's supposed to say 2018. But yeah, essentially we followed the process, we approved, and then when we had to renew, we came to SCoAG, and SCoAG approved. Next slide, Puseletso. Sorry, Chair. Sorry, please, Puseletso, go back. So, Chair, on the top, where there's a big paragraph on the, I think it's my left. Yes, at the top there, we do indicate what the clause that is included in the agreement, which essentially gives SCoAG the approving authority. So the auditors would know that at any given time, there is no expectation unless SCoAG has approved. And we thought it was very important for us to have that clause in place. Thank you. Next slide, Puseletso. I think, yeah, this is really the last slide. Here, Chair, given the fact that we were very limited in terms of who we could appoint, we had a gap regarding a company that had the necessary skills, had the competence, the independence, and scale that was required. But we fell short in as far as BEE was concerned. But we were comfortable when we also engage with SCoAG around making sure that we get a company that has the required BEE status, and then we continuously work with SCoAG to make sure that this company continues to improve and make sure that we get to the acceptable BEE score. And you can see here, Chair, we move from a level 7 to level 2, which is where we felt that the company has done. I think they've done as best as they could, I think, given the constraint that they had. But there's always room for improvement, and we continue to work with this firm to make sure that we are comfortable with with where they are. So I think in conclusion, Chair, the contract that we have in place, initially 5-year contract. So we finished that 5-year contract. The contract was then renewed for another 2 years, sorry, not another 2 years, for another 5 years. And where we are right now, the 3 years, including this year, will be finished, and then we're really left with 2 years with the existing contract. And the processes have been followed, Audit Committee approving and SCoAG having that right to approve the contract every year. And really, we thank SCoAG for that support and really supporting us and getting us to this far. Thank you so much, Chair. I'm not sure, but I would really appreciate if perhaps we can give Mr. Mampuru a chance if he's got anything else that you'd like to add. Mampuru?
He's welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Mampuru? It looks like we have lost Mr. Mampuru.
Sorry, apologies. Thank you, Chair. Good morning, honorable members. Chair, I think I'm really covered. Just one point to add, and to also emphasize sorry, let me just put the camera on. There you are. Just one comment from my side, Chair. Thank you for the opportunity to clarify the contract for the external auditors. I think the one thing that maybe something that the chair of the audit committee did not mention is that the process that we went through, when we went out for to advertise the contract, obviously there was limited interest because of the CWC, and as a result of that, we thought it would make a lot of sense for us to actually make the contract 5 years, and then with an option to renew. When the contract came to an end after 5 years, we took an option to renew. But even when we renewed, we had to do an assessment on the competency of the external auditor, and we were satisfied that with their performance, and then based on that, we then recommended to SCoAG to give us another 5 years extension, and then with obviously with a proviso that every year when we come back to SCoAG, we will get an approval in line with the best practice in the market. Obviously, if you link this to the Section 90 of the Companies Act, the companies when they've got their auditors, they always go back to their shareholders and the AGM to get an approval. And then the other thing that I also wanted to highlight is on the requirement for one of the requirements when these auditors were appointed, they were sitting on level 7, triple BEE, and they were given a target for every year, and we are pleased to say that they have been able to achieve that. It's a local firm. They have been able to move from level 7 to level 2, and as we speak now, the partner who was running this audit has now been appointed or nominated to be the CEO of the audit firm, which is a very good milestone for us. It's something that we are proud of. Obviously, we have played a role as the AGSA to assist in building the capacity and also pushing the audit firm to achieve level 2, and also at the same time for a person of color to ascend to that position. And yeah, I think the rest of the stuff has been covered, Chair. I know you said we need to be very brief, so yeah, I will stop there, and allow the honourable members to pose questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mampuru.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Mtau, and also Mr. Mampuru for that and for the further explanation. I think it's good that the committee got this. I can also just add, Mr. Mampuru touched on it, but I can comfort the members of the committee. I was made privy to the full agreement that was signed and amended in 2022. And the agreement does address the lacuna with regards to that the contract is multi-year, but subject to annual approval. It is very clearly stated in the agreement, firstly in the contract. It is in section 1 or clause 1, it is said that it is subject to annual review and confirmation by the Parliamentary Standing Committee on the Auditor-General. And then in the addendum, which amended certain clauses, in clause 3.1, it is also further elaborated on that the agreement is subject to annual review and confirmation by the oversight mechanism, commence on the date, until the date of the meeting of the oversight mechanism, at which it reviews the appointment and confirm the extension or otherwise on which date it shall expire unless terminated by either party in terms of any right specified in the agreement. Should the oversight mechanism approve any annual extension, the Audit Committee shall annually monitor and continue to assess the transformational plan. That's now in specific with regards to the addendum. So I think, honourable members, we got our clarity in this regard, but I do open the floor for any further engagement and questions for clarity. Honourable Montana.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks very much, and thanks for the words of comfort you've given to us. There are 3 issues I want to raise, Chair. The first one relates to, I think I had the presentation, the Chair of the Audit Committee. I think that she went into great detail, all the issues, the capacity, the skills, the independence. We appreciate that. There's one thing she didn't, of course, touch. I thought that M Mampuru, when he came in, he would deal with the issue. Was there price consideration when this contract was done? And how does it work? When the bid was issued, did they offer a price? Is it fixed? I know that, of course, in this field, we deal with people working with on rates that are determined upfront. But with those was the price offering as well? How does it work? Is it fixed? Is it something that changes annually? I just want to have a sense of that. That's the first issue, Chair. So was it done in terms of, when you say open tender, was it done in terms of the triple PFA? What underpins that? I think I just want to have a sense of that, so that it's not solely or only some of the consideration that the Chair eloquently dealt with. So that's the first issue that I want to have a sense. I think I'm asking because I wasn't a member of this committee, or I joined this committee and then I was moved and now I'm back. So if this was dealt with during my absence, I would respect that, Chair. But I think that would be the first issue I raise. The second issue, Chair, that I would raise on this issue. And I think that I know that we're having all this assurance. The role of external auditors play quite an important role, and this could help us also to fulfill our role in terms of the Public Audit Act. So for me, when you have that kind of a service provider, that service provider should actually probably twice or thrice a year should be able to come to the standing committee and brief us about the work, what they're picking up, because they're giving us the assurance as a committee on the work of the Auditor General. So they report to the audit committee, but equally that they probably twice or thrice in a year would come and present what they are picking up on the work of the thing. Because I think that it's very important for the Auditor General to be setting, or the Office of the Auditor General to be setting high standards as a supreme auditor of the land. The third issue, Chair, I think that notwithstanding your words of comfort and notwithstanding what the Chair of the Audit Committee said, but I do not agree that we have a contract in this space, particularly with deal with auditing, independence, and other things, that you can have a contract that would effectively run for 10 years. I think that is something, I don't think we should make a decision about it, but I think I would urge the Audit Committee and the Auditor General to go back and look at this matter. I would support that we endorse the extension for this financial year. There's no doubt, and probably till the end. But I think a contract like this would be a 3-year contract with an option to renew for 2 years. Precisely because, unlike probably many other contracts, issues of independence, issues of accountability, issues of conflicts, and you don't want people to be comfortable in this kind of environment. You need to keep on raising the standards, because you are the Auditor General South Africa, and there are quite a lot of auditees that you want to lift up, even those that you are not as yet falling within the ambit of the Auditor General. So I think that is something that at the right time, I would urge the Audit Committee, I'd urge the Auditor General that they look at this thing. And if you ask my advice, I wouldn't have a contract in this space. Maybe in the previous world where I was, when you deal with different kind of supply issues. And I'll tell you that there'll be a lot of young or emerging even audit firms or even established who'd view it as a privilege to audit the Auditor General. They'll view it as a huge honor. So my view is that maybe that's not what we are discussing today, but that will be the advice that an honest advice that I would give. Do not have a 5-year contract on this type of thing. Do not allow for it to be extended where it goes for almost a decade. In this space, no, Chair. I think that I would advise, consider, whilst I support that we approve or we endorse what already the work is underway, that we support that, but that it's not our decision. It's a decision of the Audit Committee. I think review this, make it 3 years with an option for 2 years. Then in that case, I think that you'll be effectively managing issues of independence and the kind of concerns that you have. Secondly, Chair, in relation to that, I think that also the issue about the condition that you've pushed, you can see that I'm not sure if it's helping you. Again, something that maybe you may need to review to be able to assist you. Chair, I'll be happy if these external auditors would come before us twice or thrice in a year, because our job is to look, as I said at the beginning of the meeting, to look at the business of the Auditor General, not audit, but the business of the Auditor General. So those will be my contribution, Chair, and hopefully I think that it will be taken in the spirit in which I'm making it. Thank you.
Much. Thank you, Honourable Montana. I see my audio is on. I will give the chairperson of the Audit Committee time to respond. Honourable Subrati, I do see your hand.
And thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, let me firstly welcome your leadership in wanting us to have this item on the agenda, notwithstanding the fact that last year when the Audit Committee appeared before SCoAG, we had interrogated and sought clarity as to the 5-year period, because as Honourable Montana had mentioned, members of the audits of SCoAG were also uncomfortable with regards to the renewal of that period. And I think in the interest of being a transparent and a parliament that is alive and that has democracy in it, we thought, let us get further clarity. And I think you were quite firm in terms of wanting to seek that clarity. Therefore, I began by appreciating your leadership in wanting to bring this item on the agenda. Let me also appreciate the presentation from the Audit Committee and the clarity that it is providing for the second time around, and a better appreciation of the circumstances and an affirmation perhaps of our understanding of the challenges into which these decisions were made. As we had grasped, was that the pool of available auditors was really limited because of the possible conflict of interest. And today we've further learned, and maybe we relearned, that issues such as scalability, global connection, etc., these are all factors that have been taken into account. So we want to appreciate that the circumstances in which these decisions are made. I also want to commend the firm, Crow, for appointing a black CEO. And I also want to compliment the efforts made in terms of improving the BEE. An area that I was possibly challenged with was, and I think today we got clarity, and I think particularly you gave us that clarity, Chairperson, when you mentioned that you were privy to the agreement or the contract, is that I was possibly uncomfortable that are we compelled, notwithstanding the fact that we might be, for whatever reason, if we were unhappy with the order, to continue reappointing the auditor until we see the period. And you clarified that a specific term in the contract is that the renewal of the contract is on an annual basis, subject to the oversight mechanism approving that. And that really puts SCoAG at the center of the entire thing. And I think that's crucially important for me, and the clarity that I sought, that we have this power of renewal annually, and that is a genuine power of renewal that the contract identifies. Lastly, Chairperson, maybe just having reflected on what Honourable Montana has also mentioned, and also Honourable Montana, the SCoAG last year when we did sit, we were mindful of the elements of that you had alluded to. But maybe just let me read off, and I think this provides guidance for us where we are now, and more so at the end of 2027. Whilst the AGSA is not governed by IRBA, the Independent Regulatory Board for Auditors, it did publish an article, and I just want to read off it, that in compliance with Section 10 of the Audit Professions Act of 2005, the Independent Regulatory Board of Auditors hereby publish rule of mandatory audit firm rotation for auditors of all public interest entities as defined by Section 90 of the IRBA Code of Professional Conduct. And the requirements are as follows: that as an audit firm, including a network firm as defined in the IRBA Code of Conduct for registered auditors, shall not serve as the appointed auditor of a public interest entity for more than 10 consecutive financial years. And point 2 is thereafter, the audit firm will only be eligible for reappointment as the auditor after the expiry of at least 5 financial years. So I think whilst, as I said, SCoAG, AG is independent, does provide this guidance towards public interest entities. And having read this and understood that we are reaching we will be reaching a period of 10 years, I'm comforted that we are within some sort of guidelines, though we're not governed by but within what has decided for public interest entities. And maybe as I conclude, Chairperson, provide this guidance that we would, as SCoAG, ideally, and as we did indicate when we approved the approval of CRO, that we would be seeking and urging the audit committee from now to begin looking for a new auditor, because this auditor would have served us for 10 years. Thank you so much, Chairperson. I welcome the presentation, and I think from our point of view, we have clarity on the matter. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Subrati. I saw the hand of Honourable Muali. Do you still have a need to speak?
Yes, Chairperson, I'll just mention one thing. I've been covered by members. I don't want to repeat. To note that the presentation or the brief that we got from the Audit Committee, we did not receive it before this meeting to familiarize ourselves with. So I just want the committee or you, Chairperson, to note that this brief, we just saw it now when it was presented. We were not familiar with it before the meeting.
Well, Muali, if I'm correct, it was distributed, but I must say there was a lot of documents distributed the past few days. And I think it was part of a bundle that was distributed yesterday on email that had a lot of attachments yesterday. So it wasn't long before the meeting. I think we take note thereof, but it was distributed. But I do understand, I think we will discuss this with the Secretariat and maybe make a plan when there's so many documents to rather use and utilize something like a Google Drive where documents are uploaded and we provide a link to members so that there's not all those emails and the email chain with a lot of different updates and a lot of different documents, and we'll look into it, because I must also say that I got confused and at a stage didn't know what was distributed and if it was and if it wasn't. But I did see it yesterday in an email that was sent to members. Ms. Mutau, you are welcome to respond. I'll give you a few minutes.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you very much, honourable members, for your questions. I will respond as best as I can, and then I'll ask my colleague Mampuru to assist me. So if I can perhaps start with the comments from Member Montana. Yes, price. I'm really not sure how we missed the price dimension in our slide number 4. So you can imagine, as accountants, it's a very key focus area. So even when we approved as the committee, pricing was important. It was taken into account. But every year, when they present the plan, we interrogate the pricing as part of the submission. We look at the hours that would be spent, how many hours were spent last year, and this year how many hours are going to be spent, and what are the efficiencies. Where is the audit being improved versus last year? Are we getting the value for money? So we go into a lot of detail as the audit committee interrogating the pricing. Yes, when we approved when we advertised, we did advertise, and part of the part of the advert was that pricing was included in that. Of course, we then would have considered quality and all the other factors that we've included on slide 4 as well. And so that was part of the approval at the time. There was a scoring sheet. We can go back and check, but it's I remember was part of that process in 2017. There was a scoring that we considered at the time, and I can confirm that we did follow the policies that are being approved by the Auditor General. And the second thing is the auditor to present to SCoAG. I suppose, Chair, that is really up to SCoAG as to who they would want to present to SCoAG. So, Chair, perhaps I leave that with you. Now, coming to the 10-year contract, is it too long? And I thank you, Member Subrati, regarding the rotation note that you've received that you saw from ERBA, and of course that would have been one of the things that we considered in the appointment. And so also just to add, the reason why in the beginning I went into great length in as far as what really led us to this far was on the basis of and I'll go back to this point, Chair, around making sure that we've got the knowledge of the person that, or the organization that is appointed has the knowledge of the business of the Auditor General. Then the business of the Auditor General, it's not a simple business. It's very complex. It's a very complex business, and it's very wide. And also our consideration also was a person coming in, do they have the knowledge and understanding of operating in the public sector? So all of those things need to be considered, because at the end of the day, a firm has to conducting the audit. They have to make sure that they identify with the knowledge of the business. They must then identify the audit risk. And then they must then come to a point where they say the audit risk, even if it's high, but we are comfortable with the procedures that we have done, that we can sign off and say the financial statements fairly present. And so for us, it is very, very important, that we have this firm and give them a good amount of time for them to be able to understand the business. I think what is also important is that the initial partner that we had has been rotated off, and was rotated off after 7 years, this is in line with the mandate, with the rotation policy of the Auditor General. Then they had to rotate off so that a new person can come in, and again for the issues of independence. I think, Chair, I've addressed the queries and concerns. Perhaps Mampuru, you can come in, but maybe before you come in, Mampuru, I think, Chair, given the challenges that we've experienced in coming to this decision where we appointed for 5 years. I mean, it was a lengthy process. We've actually gone back to see, since we started this process, what has been like. It has really been, it's been a challenge. And again, because there's very limited firms that are prepared to do this kind of work. And what we will certainly do going forward, what we will consider is making sure that we start the process much sooner. Maybe 2 years before the new auditors are appointed. But I mean, the issue of CWC will remain a challenge because firms would rather do CWC work rather than, as opposed to do the external audit work. Thank you, Chair. Perhaps if Mr. Mampuru would like to add anything else. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
You are welcome.
Honorable Chair, thank you. I am likely covered. Just one point to add on that question of pricing. Obviously, we followed a very competitive bid process. We even formed a bid adjudication committee and bid evaluation committee, and all of those independent parties assess the price as one of the conditions. Obviously, there was a question of scale, a question of independence, and also a question of BEE. All of those were considered. But if we are required to bring the numbers to the table, I think those numbers are actually reported in the annual report. So the figures are there. But if we need to bring the figures to this committee, we are quite happy to bring that analysis to Honorable Montana and the committee. And then the other thing is on the contract. I think the contract, Chair, if you had a look at it, I think it provides for there is a termination clause, despite the allowing SCoAG to appoint every year. There is if we are unhappy with the audit for whatever reasons, or the auditors for whatever reasons, be independence or be a conflict of interest, the AGSA has got a right to terminate, and then the audit committee will then be given an opportunity to engage with the auditors to make sure that the process is fair. And if we are also happy as the audit committee that we are not comfortable to proceed with the auditors, then we would then be allowed to terminate. So I thought I should just mention that there is that 30-day provision in the legal agreement, Chair, despite the annual renewal from SCoAG. And on the cooling off, not the cooling off period, the 10-year rotation. I think by the time we get to the end of the contract, I think the auditors would have done 9 years of the audit, 9 years audit, I think. So we should still be within that rotation, the audit firm rotation. Also to confirm that the partner has now been rotated. We've got a new partner who came in last year. So we are comfortable with that from a governance point of view. And Chair, I understand where Honorable Montana is coming from. Obviously, as you can imagine, the audit space is an area where we still want to see a lot of young and Black people participating in this area. The challenge, obviously, for AGSA is that a lot of these audit firms would rather do the CWC work, do some contract work for the AGSA than to do the external audit. So that's really the biggest challenge. And the other thing is whoever you appoint will need to have the public sector experience, which is also still limited. And again, because of the size of the AGSA, you need someone who's able to cover all the regions. And it becomes a challenge for the smaller audit firms. So that reduces the pool, it makes it even smaller. But we will take all of those things into account when we get to that point of renewing the contract. And we will assure this committee that we will start with the process as soon as possible, so that we are not under pressure in terms of getting to that final appointment. I think I've covered all the points here. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Honorable Montana, I do see your hand. Let me give you an opportunity for follow-up.
Chair, I'll be very brief. I don't think we're asking for the numbers. I think on the pricing, they were not included in the slides, so that is why we asked that question. But Chair, I just want to. I've heard what the chair of the audit committee has said on what were the considerations. Fortunately, we are not reviewing that now. We're not changing that. But I'm urging, Chair, that the audit committee in the year ahead, they think deeply about it and ask. So it's not about being unhappy with the current external auditors. I don't even know them. That's not the issue for me. But I think that we need to ask in this space, whether that is as we shape the strategy forward for contracting, whether that's a route to go. So I'm not asking for a response. I'm just asking Chair that they think deeply about it and assess whether it is actually the right approach. But thanks very much. Thanks for the presentation as well as the responses from the members of the Audit Committee. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Montana. That does assist. I think what the Audit Committee can do is when they do present to us later this year, when we have to consider once again the appointment, that we might be again briefed further and further engage on that issue. But I think we have exhausted this for now. And thank you very much once again to the members of the Audit Committee, to the chairperson, and also Honourable Mr. Mampuru. Do appreciate and for your time and for your effort in this regard, and honourable members also for your participation and your questions that I think does exhaust this issue and gives us comfort that we do fulfill our mandate in terms of overseeing and our oversight, especially with regards to the appointment of the external auditors. Honourable members, we can then move on. I think we are going to be on the time that I indicated in the beginning. I think we are going to conclude before 11:30, so I want to thank you for that. And we have a last item, which is the complaint, which we discussed in the previous meeting. And if I can just remind honourable members that we received that complaint again. The complaint was processed in the 6th Parliament in 2022, but we received, there was a letter to the Speaker, and then there was again a formal complaint to SCoAG, and we resolved that we should get a legal opinion from the Parliamentary Legal Services on this matter, on how we can reach finality, because there were certain aspects that were unclear as to how it was resolved upon by the previous committee. In the past few weeks since our last meeting, a lot has been done to gather all the relevant documents. We resolved that we would want a written briefing by the, or report rather, by the DAG on the processing of the complaint back then. Also a report by the Content Adviser on how the committee, SCoAG, handled it in 2022. And then also all the relevant other documentation, the investigation report and the legal opinion. So that the legal opinion that informed the process at that stage, that was on the complaints, and that was produced by the DAG and ultimately by SCoAG indirectly to resolve on the matter. We did obtain all of that information, and we did send it to the Legal Services, Office of the Legal Advisers of Parliament, so that they are commissioned to give us such opinion. We did receive some of the information only yesterday or the day before yesterday. So I wrote to the CLSO yesterday to ask for the legal opinion. So we have not received that opinion yet, which we can use to base our final resolution on, and how we go forth with it and resolve on it. I think one of the problems to a certain extent is that there's minutes of meetings where there were resolutions on the matters and the complaints, but there were no formal correspondence on this matter, and there was no report tabled to actually for consideration to say this is the finality on this complaints. And I think we can do that now, but as we resolved in the previous meeting, be informed by legal services and get that opinion. The documents were distributed to members. The full investigation report and also the legal opinion is privileged and is not something that should be in the public domain. Mr. Mbaso at a certain stage also brought a fire application to Parliament, and that was referred to the AGSA to obtain that investigation report and legal opinion by Advocate Kroll. And quite rightfully so, in terms of fire, a privileged documentation is not does not fall under the armpit of PIA, and access to that document was denied. So we have to be very careful and to put this opinion and investigation report in the public domain, as it is privileged. So we also included how we can handle and process that in the request to legal services to provide us with a further opinion if necessary, if it is necessary to handle it, because there is provision in the rules of the National Assembly of how to deal with confidential documents. But I don't think that is a topic that we have to discuss today. The important part is that we have received the documentation, the minutes, and the report by the DAG, report by the Content Adviser, and that members can go through it so that when we have the legal opinion by Parliamentary Legal Services, we can then make an informed choice and have constructive deliberations on the matter so that we can reach finality. At the end of the day, we also do have the Content Adviser, the former Content Adviser, current unit manager, which can brief us briefly on and talk to the report that was submitted to members. And I am going to give him an opportunity, but as with the other presentations, it's not necessary to go through it at length, and you can be brief and just talk to some of the important points. But I am going to give Kuli Sile an opportunity to just talk to us on that, and then in a next meeting, we will, when we receive the legal opinion by Parliament of Parliament, we will then at length deliberate and conclude the matter. Kulesile, you are most welcome to talk to us on the briefing, please.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Chairperson and honorable members. As you just alluded, Chair, I think I've sent the briefing through Community Secretary, and then I hope it has been distributed. Actually, I've just provided two. The briefing was divided into two: background and also the resolutions. And I think I feel like let me start with the background of that briefing. Chair, when this thing started on the 26th of August 2022, on the 25th and 26th of August 2022, the committee held its strategic planning session. It decided that time that you have to go to hold the strategic planning session in the offices of AXA, so as to get more participation of AXA officials. Then we go and hold that strategic planning session in Pretoria in the AXA head offices. On the second day of the strategic planning session took over 2 days. On the second day, we have been requested by DAG to brief the committee. That is on the end of the session. And then he briefed us. And then he raised this, that there's this allegation against the AG. In fact, he briefed the committee alone. He requested that briefing should be a closed meeting. So there was that closed meeting where he briefed the committee, took the committee in confidence of the allegation that were leveled against the AG with regard to unethical and professionals and also corruption as emanated from Mr. Mbaso, the former CPO, Chief People's Officer. And basically on that briefing, he also informed us that the committee that they decided that the institution actually instituted the independent investigation, which I think it was through the Bowman's legal attorneys. And then we agreed with the processes that had been followed by the DH at that time. The committee now will say we have agreed that let's await the outcomes of that independent investigation. And then once the investigation is concluded and then there are available outcomes, then the DG will be requested by the committee to brief the committee. Indeed, on the meeting after the outcomes and findings of that, or rather after the investigation has been concluded, independent investigation has been concluded, we've been informed by DG, and then we convened a meeting. We invited them on the 16th of September, I think 2022. And there was also availability of a report from the Audit Committee of the AXA. Then, upon receiving those briefings on the 16th of September, the committee was satisfied with the findings and outcomes, although there were some certain gaps or weaknesses that had been raised by, in particular, both reports, let me say so. And then there were some certain identified improvements processes that should be followed in order to identified improvements that have been proposed in order to deal with those weaknesses that have been identified. And subsequently, we responded based on what we got, briefing from the DAG and also from the Audit Committee on that time. Those reports, which were our findings and outcomes of the report emanating from that, they were emanating from the investigations on those allegations. And then, as I said, the committee was satisfied, and as a result, we wrote to responding to the public protector, because we are required to respond to the public protector. And then I think I attached a letter in this regard that we wrote in order to, that was signed by the former chairperson. That letter was containing the spirit of the meeting, or rather the spirit of the committee, on how it was dealt with the allegation, and also how it resolved. And in a nutshell, the essence of in essence, the committee was just satisfied with the processes that were followed by the institution in order to investigate those allegations that were leveled against the AG. So, Chair, I think let me end there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just have to switch again. Thank you for that briefing. Much appreciated. Honourable members, any questions for clarity? I don't see any hands. Honourable Bateman and then Honourable Montana.
Thanks, Chair. So So I'll just preface my question with just a comment. The main challenge here seems to be more one of process than anything else. That the process has left us vulnerable to accusations of not giving the complainant a fair hearing. And so I would like to know, is there evidence of the previous committee interrogating the evidence presented by the complainant to make sure that none of the facts presented by the AG were contradicted, or there was no other evidence that might have caused the legal opinion to take a different line if it had been exposed to that evidence? Because it's a question of process here, really, to make sure that that all of the necessary evidence has actually been weighed up in the legal opinion. So anyway, I don't want to get too much into the discussion of it, but I think just in terms of trying to get questions of clarity, the question is, to what extent did SCoAG sift the evidence and allow for a fair hearing from the complainant?
Thank you, Honourable Bateman. I'll give an opportunity for a response. Honourable Montana.
Thanks, Chair. My apologies. I think I'm talking a lot this morning. Chair, for me, I agree fully with what Honourable Bateman had said. That is actually the heart of this issue. For me, when I read the report, there were two things. One, I think that there's no reason, there's no basis, assuming that the questions that Honourable Bateman had raised, I came to the same conclusion. And the conclusion was that there's no basis for this committee at this point in time to reopen the matter. If SCoAG was quite satisfied with what was presented, the only thing that I see as a problem from what was done was that it was left that the committee was satisfied, but the basis upon which what it is considered from the report, from the legal process, or the process that was followed, it didn't summarize the basis upon which it was quite satisfied with that. So I think that what we should be doing is that we should be saying two things. One, that we've looked at what the committee has done, previously done. It was satisfied with what the Auditor-General, the office, has done in terms of investigating these particular issues. There were legal reviews on this process, and these were some of the issues that came up. And yeah, I don't think every time a letter is written to this committee, we're going to open up the matter. I think that it should be very tight. It should be some, like when you go and appeal a matter, you can't come you can't just come and start with new things. And I'm not saying that that's what is being done here. But as long as this committee, or even previously in the last administration, it didn't record its decision properly, then we're going to have a problem. And I think that we're going to face the risk that Honourable Bateman is raising, that where he said this committee didn't consider the complaint, it didn't deal with it properly. But from where I sit, I don't think that we've got any basis for reopening the matter as it is, unless, if Chair, there's some information that has not been placed before us. But I don't think the recording is being done properly of the decision. Hence, we may find ourselves open to challenges in future. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Montana. Yes, I agree with you, and I think that is, it's not a reopening and shouldn't be a reopening necessarily, unless there is due reason for that. But at this stage, it's about really due process and saying let's get finality on this matter. So I do agree with you. Honourable Subrati, I see your hand.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, I think I am covered largely by Honourable Bateman and Honourable Montana. Safe to say that we wanted to get clarity one of the elements we want to achieve in this meeting was we wanted to establish how was the matter dealt with by the previous SCoAG. And we have received that brief from the content advisor. We've also noted that there was a Bowman's, which was the independent investigation, was carried out. So I think from the SCoAG doing what it ought to have done, it has done. I think the challenge is in terms of communication. Maybe was that communicated both to the complainant in this case and the matter put to rest. And B, Chairperson, I think given the seriousness of the allegations made by the person, I think SCoAG's task is always to protect the reputation and the independence of the AG. And maybe once we receive the legal opinion about our responsibilities, Chairperson, we might want to consider whether we want to communicate the findings and the resolutions in a public platform so as to protect AG as a Chapter 9 institution, and we don't lose public trust. That is how I suggest ultimately we should, after rendering an explanation to the complainant that as this SCoAG of the 7th administration we are satisfied, we should consider releasing a public statement. And finally, I do support the view that we don't need to reopen this matter again. Thank you so much, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honourable Subrati. And I think when we receive the legal opinion, we can deliberate further, but I do agree with you. Let me give the unit manager opportunity to respond.
No, thanks, Chair. I think I'm agree with the honourable members. I think what was the gap here or a flaw was not to communicate back to the complainant. Because in fact we were under pressure, that I still recall, of responding, the time frame to respond to the public protector. So once we conclude, after the conclusion, we just had the communique, write a letter, which was expressing the processes that have been followed by the committee, and then we rushed to send that letter to the public protector. After that, we stopped the process and we thought that was done. And then I think that is where the flaw happened, not to communicate back to the complainant. Maybe perhaps if we have communicated back to the complainant, the complainant will not support, will not have been again send the complaint again to this new committee. That's maybe the flaw that has happened. Happened during the 6th Parliament of not communicating back to the complainant. I think I'm agree with the honourable members that what can I think need to be done now in this current committee is just that after we get the legal opinion. And then if we agree that we finalize the process, or that process that was finalized, the process that was taken by the 6th Parliament committee, if it's fine, then we can just communicate back to the complainant about the outcomes of the investigation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think the crucial point is that we do our due diligence. We apply our minds, and I think we are doing that now, and we are satisfying our obligation by really engaging this so that there's no sword hanging and so that there's finality on this matter. Members would also have seen that in the DAG's report to us, he does also report on the progress or what followed, because there were about 3 findings that did find that there were certain rooms for improvement, if I can put it like that, and that they were then also resolved by the committee at that stage, that you would see in the minutes that there should be progress updates on the steps that the AGSA is taken to resolve or to mitigate and prevent those type of situations in future. So that is also there, and I think it's important that members do go scrutinize that and look at that so that we can engage and also include that in our deliberations at the next meeting. Honourable Bateman, your hand, is it a follow-up?
Yes, thanks, Chair. Just to say, the important thing here is not just that justice is done, but also that justice is seen to be done. And I think amongst those governance failures that needed to be addressed, and that was something that the previous committee took on. There's a concern that there's an over-centralization of power in the AG in terms of the structure and lacking a board. So in this situation, because it was dealt with as an internal matter, you effectively had the AG overseeing the dealing with a complaint about the AG. And I'm not saying that it was dealt with wrongly by the AG, but I think from SCoAG's point of view, they should have identified that as a weakness in how the process was unfolding. And because the legal opinion says it's based on the facts as presented by the AG. And I'm not saying that any of the facts are wrong, but I'm just saying that there wasn't an opportunity that I can tell, or I haven't seen evidence that there was an opportunity for SCoAG to hear all of the evidence that the complainant wanted to present. And in the absence of all the evidence, the legal opinion is only going to be as good as the evidence on which it's based. So again, I don't have a problem with the outcome necessarily, but I do think that it's the fact that this was handled as an internal matter means that it's never actually been heard as a SCoAG complaint. SCoAG has just said, okay, we're happy with how it was handled internally, but to actually receive it as a SCoAG complaint is invokes a different process, or it should. So I hope that our legal opinion is going to address this question. What does it look like for SCoAG to address a complaint independently of the AG? That's the only way we can really, give the AG a proper clean bill of health, is that we provide an independent reference point or an accountability point for what the AG is doing. So I hope I'm making sense.
You're off. Thank you, Honourable Bateman. I think that's also crucial, and it is about the evidence that were produced. Did the committee just go on what was reported to it by the DAG, or did it actually apply its mind? And that is what we have to satisfy ourselves about. I can also say, and that's why we should consider the confidentiality of and how we handle the confidentiality of the investigative report, because that report is very comprehensive and does contain the evidence from that was scrutinized, and it is not necessarily necessary for SCoAG to process a complaint and do an investigation afresh if it can satisfy itself that there was an independent, thorough investigation that it can produce itself. So we will deliberate further on that on the basis of the legal opinion, and the legal opinion should provide clarity on is that possible? Is that maybe a problem and a fault? And what should the process be, and how can we take it further? Also, obviously, honourable members, to inform us and inform our processes for further complaints going forth, how it should be dealt with, so that we don't have a repetition of this comeback and no finality on an issue. Honourable Bateman?
Yes, I would agree with that, Honourable Chair. Thank you. And it may be a simpler case because we have a fair amount of correspondence from the complainant. It might be a simpler case to have someone independent look at all the evidence that has been presented by the complainant and consider all the evidence that was presented to the legal, in the case of the legal opinion, and highlight to the committee if there's any new evidence that might have affected the legal opinion, or if there's any evidence that contradicts the evidence that was provided, and if so, to just give some independent confirmation as to which is the correct evidence, and just to put that to bed, that there's no see, even in using language like that, I'm already showing to some degree that I'm that the problem is the process has actually been has been taken in a direction already, and because it wasn't set on a proper independent footing in the first place, we end up in this situation. And it might actually be that the best thing for us to do is to actually step back from it and say, Public Protector, you look at this. Complete fresh set of eyes. Tell us if you're happy with how this has been processed, and satisfy yourself that SCoAG, as SCoAG, we in being both this SCoAG and the previous version of SCoAG, we've handled this adequately. Thanks.
Thank you, Honourable Bateman. The last thing we want to do and should do, and I don't think we are doing that, but as you put it, the wording is complicated, but we are not preempting an outcome, but we are also at the same time not busy with a witch hunt. And that is why we should, that's why we should be cautious. And I agree with you, but let's get the legal opinion and then deliberate and see what is the way forward. Honourable members, I take it there's no further inputs. I don't see any further hands. So we can conclude this matter and this point on the agenda. And then we'll further engage on this once we get the opinion by Parliamentary Legal Services so that we can take it further. We are then at the end of our meeting. We have already dealt with the minutes, and we've also dealt and adopted the committee report on the induction workshop. So I want to thank all the honourable members for your attendance, also for your contributions, your participation, and also to the AGSA, to the AG, the DAG, and the whole team for your attendance and your presentation, and also to the Audit Committee, and then once again also to the parliamentary support staff for your hard work and for also being diligent in assisting us and making us stronger and enabling us to do our work as committee and as oversight mechanism. Honourable members and everybody present, please have a good weekend, a safe weekend, and rest well. We have a lot of work to do. Parliamentary program is very busy up until the end of July. And let's take every opportunity that we can to rest a bit and spend time with our families. Please be safe, and till next time, thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Chair. Good.
Thanks, Chair.